Please, here we go. Avril Quayle. Hello, Avril. Sonia Smollercomb's joining us.
Oh, Sonia.
Oh, it's good to see you kind of rolling in. Gillian Steele, I see you. Every time I do this, I feel like I'm at play school. You know, through the round window, I can see Dale Harding. Hello, Dale. Luke Curry Richardson is in the oblong window. How have you been, Leanne? Everything been going well for you?
Look, very good. Thank you, Wesley. Under the circumstances. Look, probably lacking a bit of sleep. I think it's around this digital fatigue. I feel like, you know, you're spending most of your time on the screen. I feel like it's sapping energy from me, and I find it very difficult to sleep at night. I don't know if other people are, but it's, yeah, keeping me very wired at the moment.
Agreed. I think I'm a bit like that. As we're seeing more people come in, we've got about 33 people in at the moment. Luke saying hello to family, love and respect to everyone. Thanks, Luke. Lydia Miller saying hello to everyone. I'm with you on this one, Leanne. This notion of, I'm used to also screens being my social time and my relaxing time, watching movies and things. So I'm now, you know, 7 hours, 8 hours a day in front of a screen just for work, you know, and it's just emanating all that stuff. Raz from the Philippines, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. And also Travis DeVries calling out to everyone. Hello.
Hi, Zane Saunders online.
Oh, Zane, good to see you, Zane. I saw you on the television just the other night, Zane Saunders, when Victor had his Australian story on about cultural burning. It was fantastic. So great to have you there.
And the lovely Charmaine Green, all the way over there in Geraldton, WA. Hi, Charmaine.
It's interesting to hear what they're doing in WA, where they've now got different regions of the state, so you can't travel between regions in WA, which is a very interesting way of kind of not just the lockdown as we're experiencing it now, but also lockdown within certain parts of WA, which I know are keeping people in rural communities, regional and remote communities, safe too, which is great. We've got about 47 people in at the moment, and we're still a few moments away from starting. So great to have so many people here. Sophia Hall, oh, great to have you here. Todd McDonald, great to see you. Come on this. I was wondering if why we can't hear the talk. Oh, Raz, don't know why that would be the case. Let's I'll put that out there. I wonder if it's got anything to do with you being in the Philippines or not. We'll see. It shouldn't be the case. Also, people from India. Hello, Rena. That's fantastic. We'll see. Ludmilla Donovan joining us again. I owe you an email. Penny Smith. It's terrible when you go, people you owe emails and money to all come on board to talk to you on this platform. So, not that I owe many people money, I don't think. Jason Parsfield, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here. We've got about 57, 59 people joined us in there at the moment. Leanne, how's it going in South Australia for you? Is there a sense of optimism in your area?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think people are generally, I think our South Aussies are pretty well good around this, where people are tending to be, you know, taking notice of the social distancing. And I think what I've really experienced is two things. Families spending more time together with their children. So there's a lot more activity around the suburbs. People are out exercising. They're looking after their health that way. A lot more fathers engaging with their kids and spending time with their children as well. So really getting outdoors. Yeah, so look, I think we're fine. I know where I live, it is a COVID hotspot. We live near the big submarine, well, I live near the big submarine build corporation here. So we had an outbreak probably 3 weeks ago. So everyone's immediately in my circle here, in my suburb, are pretty good at taking care of each other.
That's very good. We've got about 90 people online at the moment, and we might give people just a couple more moments to come on in. We were scheduled to start at 2, and it'll sometimes take us a little bit of time to to jump on the link and get in. So we might just give people a couple more times. Raz, great that that's all sorted itself out. And thank you, Ludmilla, for being patient with my return email. That'll all happen. I see Adam James coming in, which is great to see you again, Adam. And the work you're doing there seems really exciting as well. Chrissy Vincent coming through. Oh, Chris Tua, hello, good to see you. Thanks for having me, coming on board.
Oh, Angelina Zucco from Adelaide, from the Zephyr Quartet. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
Ellen Van Neerven is there as well. Good to see you, Ellen. It's great to have you on board, as always.
In a Braum.
We're at 116 people. We might just give everyone just one more minute, and then we'll jump into the proper proceedings. But just great to have all. And as I keep talking to people here, Leanne, about what these roundtables mean to people, it's often just a great touchstone, a moment to come together, which is fantastic as well. People from all over the country, and obviously then from different parts of the world, just tuning in to go, oh, what are you doing and how are we coping? What's something that's new that we could be doing in our area that you're doing in yours, and how we're looking after each other. It's a fantastic thing. Peter Lanoy over there in Cairns, good to hear from you as everyone's kind of coming through. We've got about 133 people now. Esther, good to see you, Esther, coming on board. And Georgia as well from Narva, both those people from Narva. I know you've been doing some great work there. Nancy Bamaga saying hello to us there, Leanne.
Oh, hi, Nancy.
Lots of different people there. We're slowing down a bit, so we might be almost ready to start there, Leanne. We'll just see.
Okay, shall we? Oh, we can get going, hey?
Or with a little bit of a rush going on. There's 142 of us online. In the past, we've had up to about 180, which has been amazing. Yeah. So I think 140 something. I think we're right to maybe get a wriggle on, and people can just join us as they join us as we go through. So let's start. With the official stuff. I'd just like to say to everyone, hello, I'm Wesley Enoch, and I'm your host here. And with me is our co-chair of the Australia Council, my co-chair here, but also the deputy chair, of Leanne Buckskin of the Australia Council. Leanne, how are you going? How's it all going? How'd you cope last week without me? I'm sure you did very well.
Oh, look, darling, I missed you. We all missed you, but we kept, I think we did you proud, and we kept the conversation going. It was very good. Yeah, it was a great, and look, if anyone wants to catch up on last week's webinar, it is available on the Australia Council website as well. It was, we had Penny from Screen Australia and some other people with us, so very, very interesting information from, Copyright Agency, again, looking at where money and is supporting the sector. Okay.
There's 50 people coming in. There's 152 of us now, and this is our 5th First Nations Roundtable series, and today our focus will be on advocating the arts and how we are dealing with the impact of COVID-19 and what strategies are in place to support the sector, what we're doing to make sure things are kind of happening as we go forward. There's, Leanne, I'll hand over to you to do acknowledgement of country.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge all the respective countries by which we gather and we sit and meet on. I'd like to acknowledge all elders, past, present and emerging, and I pay my respects to all of the ancestors from all of the wonderful countries around this huge island of ours, and also acknowledge all of the countrymen that are joining us from overseas, and acknowledge the beautiful countries that you come from as well as your ancestors. Thank you, Wesley.
Thank you, Leanne. I mean, it's such an important time to stay connected to our history, our culture, our land, as we keep looking in and looking after each other. We might go to the next slide there, Michelle. Just to remind everyone a little bit about what the focus is for these roundtables. These opportunities to connect to each other, to reach out, to grab hold of each other, hold each other's hand, even if we can't do it in real life, to hold each other's hand through this time, and to make sure that we are there for each other to share some ideas as well, things that might be working in your community or that you've heard of, and how we can share and express that. And new ideas, maybe even some old ideas that we need to remember that we can share around as well. And these networks, there will be people online now, there's 163 of us that are there now who you might need to or could connect with to share some ideas, to bond together, to make new opportunities occur, and to help us navigate through these new networks, navigate what the future is. I don't know about you, Leanne, but it's like every 2 or 3 days, there's something that's shifted and changed so fundamentally that we have to go, oh, how do we cope with this? How do we cope with that? I think it was only like about a week ago now, I can't remember the time. I know it's Stradbroke Island, where my family come from. They've closed the island. So there are police stopping people from going over the island because, the average age of people living on the island, including our elders, is around 65, 66, I think. And so this sense of how do we protect our elders throughout this whole time is so, so important. And these ideas of this focus of connecting, sharing, having ideas, networking, and navigating our way through it is so, so important. So as we go through how that will happen, if we just go to the next slide, please, Michelle. The agenda, as you see it there, pretty clearly, we'll do some housekeeping in a second, just to kind of talk through how to navigate this particular site, especially if you haven't done it already. Look at some of the key issues and questions that came out of last week's webinar. Some great stuff that Leanne was just indicating before. There's a little bit of updating that we'll do from all of that as we go through. We've got 2 guest speakers here. We've got Jared Thomas, Dr. Jared Thomas, and Diat Alferink. I'll call you Dr. Diat Alferink too. She's the doctor of the far north beaches and fishing, as she's kind of talking to us earlier. But both speakers, incredible wisdom and practice in areas. We'll do a little bit of a pulse check, seeing how people are going, and also to hear some of your ideas out there. We've got a bit of time this week. And also a little bit about what's next, what's coming next, and how we might collectively work together. A little bit of a sense of the resources that we're working with, some things that are up there on the website for the Australia Council, and also talking a little bit about the next roundtable. We'll talk about some of the speakers who are going to be happening next week as we go along. So many different interesting things to stay in touch with. And this is a great place for ideas, so that if you are going, oh, what do I do next? Jump on board, have a look at the website, check out some things, and we can go through. You can look at some of the webinars we've done in the past, the last 4 of them, as well as some of the resources that we've got up online in terms of links, looking at employment, etc. I might just jump to the next slide, which is just a little bit about housekeeping. So a couple of things, just so that when you're going through the webinar, if there's some things that are grabbing your attention, I see many of you already are working on the chat box. So if you haven't used it already, if you hover your cursor down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a number of things pop up, especially a little chat bubble. If you click on that, it can open up, and you can then see the conversations as they're going through from different people, like Ellen there talking about different, it's moving so quickly now, digital space and how it might be helpful. She's got a link up there as well. I saw Cinsa had popped in from Tasmania, and that you can actually go talk to all the panelists, but also if you press the little blue button, you can then talk to specific panelists or people who are in the chat as well, if you want to have a very specific chat. So that's that there. And then down on the bottom again, there's a little bit, you can see a little box that says Q&A. If you click on that, you can ask a question, and either Leanne and I will lift that question out and have a little talk about it here, or in fact, it might be answered by, a wonderful group of Australia Council support staff who are in the back room, beavering away, doing things as well. So you can have a little chat there. You could also ask, if you have a specific question to ask one of our speakers, you can put up a question there if you like, and we'll field it to them when they're finished their 10-minute conversation. So just to reiterate, there's a little chat box. You can see everyone kind of coming through. I see Jenny Botts come in. Great to see you, Jenny. Gabrielle, thank you. Thanks for coming in. She's new at this, she's saying. So just find your way through. If you have a question, just check this out. Is the chat live? Yes, Gabrielle, the chat is live today on the 17th of April. Here we are live from all around the country. Leanne Buckskin, Wesley Enoch, for your listening pleasure. And also, if you need to, there's also a closed captions box at the bottom there. So get in there and have a look at that too if you need the closed captions. I know sometimes things can go a little difficult, or your bandwidth might be a little bit wicked and not doing everything you want. And just in advance to say a big thank you for your patience. I know that the bandwidth across the nation is not all the same. But, so we might find that some things might go in and out, or an image might freeze on your screen. Please, let's use our patience on this and just go, how do we keep going as fast as we can, getting as much out as we can as well. There's lots of different suggestions coming through the chat box. If I can just suggest that people pop that open and have a little look. I know Lily Shear is sharing some stuff there, some images from Muglan. Some photos from there, from Barram's Noongi Festival. Oh, great. So it's going live this weekend. That's great to see from Lily there. And also that the Sydney Opera House is providing some free content, which might be meaningful. Have an opportunity to have a little look at that as well. So you can check those things out. Bronga's saying, sorry to pest, I still can't see who is here. I can't see a blue button. Want to see the blue button. We all want to see the blue button. It's a little like the Matrix. It's the blue button or the red button. I laugh to myself. Thank you, Jared. Just if you go along to the chat and you put the participants, actually, if you want to do that as well, Bronga, if you go down to the participants thing, you can tap on that. There's 188 of us online at the moment. And then you can run down. It's an alphabetical order. And you can see the little blue button which says chat. You can talk to an individual person in the chat room there. Or if you want to talk in the big chat box, there's everyone there. You can talk to the panelists individually there if you want to. Anyway, so much to kind of consider. And sorry about all the technical talk as we go through, but hopefully we'll be able to get through this as painlessly as possible. I think we're getting much, much better. Leanne, one of the big things I'm imagining by the end of this, let's say when we come out of this, we will be so deadly at this online stuff. We will be the deadliest group of people ever. How we kind of navigate all this stuff. It's really fantastic. Oh, there we go, Brugger, good. You're feeling a little like Alice in Wonderland than the Matrix. Okay. Just watch out for that little white rabbit. They're the ones. Be careful with those ones there. I'll be the Cheshire Cat because I've got the smile on my face. But Leanne, I might hand over to you just to talk a little bit about how last week went and some of the things that came through there.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Wesley. Look, we had a really great session last week, and I just wanted to pick up on just a couple of things coming through the Q&A. Is that, please, I mean, we know that people can only they can spend all of the time on this webinar. You can spend 20 minutes to a half an hour. Please, come in and out as you please. There's no rules to this. Always remember that this is being recorded, so it will be available to you the following week if you wanted some, other time to look at that. Last week, we had a few issues and questions around the flexible approaches to our grants here at the Australia Council. So we had Pip Whittenham give an overview, as well as Sandy Collins. We have a resilience fund of $5 million. And so we have three different streams, which is, sorry, I hope you didn't hear my rubbish bin then in the background. So we've got some streams that we want to support people through our resilience funds. Please get onto the Australia Council website for that. We also had Elaine Crombie join us from the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, and talking through some of the things that she's doing with that organisation. There was also Penny Smallcombe from Screen Australia, is Indigenous unit, and they have a number of initiatives that they're launching in terms of the screen sector. They've got an overview of funding available. They've got online masterclasses. Again, we had Stephanie Parkin as our final Quandamooka woman from Norway, Wesley.
Doesn't even.
Yeah. So she's works with CAL, the Copyright Agency, and there is a cultural fund there, and all of this will be up on the website. So they've just released some short timelines in response to the COVID. So I'll leave it there. Please go to our website if you want any more information on that.
It's great, Leanne, that all of this is being recorded and is up there on the website for the Australian Council. So if you want to go back and hear that, you can go back and listen to all those things. There's just a quick little question here. Gabrielle's got this question about, basically, like many people, I guess, she runs a small business and she's had almost all of her work cancelled, which is terrible. Like so many artists and people working in the arts, and she's got some problems with Centrelink, and apparently she doesn't have enough ID to get any kind of COVID-19 payouts. I don't know how we can help them there, but maybe there's some information there that can be shared if we ask someone in the back room of the Australia Council to have a little look and see if they can talk to Gabrielle about this. I know that there's some very interesting hurdles you have to jump to get into some of this kind of support, and it's a very interesting idea that many people are being held out of that. So if someone can go and help Gabrielle and see if there's some kind of connections they can make with her, that would be great. Sorry, Leanne, to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Look, it's really interesting. I think that's one thing that causes me anxiety. I mean, as a practitioner in the industry, as well as Deputy Chair of Australia Council for the Arts, I do work out, in the community, as most of you know, and, it's a really difficult thing and causes a lot of anxiety to go and line up at Centrelink. And like you said, Wesley, there is lots of hoops to jump through, and I know that they're trying to streamline some of those access points. But look, if you don't have the amount of ID that and I know, our countrymen, a lot of our countrymen don't have that. So please, anybody that can help Gabrielle, there is the question's open. You can answer it through the question and answer, and there might be some information that you can give her that will assist her to access Centrelink.
It's great to see Yvette Holt. Apparently, Yvette, you're in a hotel quarantine lockdown, so you must have just come back from overseas somewhere. So glad to hear that you're safe, at least, and looking after yourself there. And I see that Ben Gratz has come in as well. Great to have you there, Ben. Ben was contributed to one of the earlier roundtables as we're going through. If we go to the next slide then, Michelle. Leanne, where we're just talking, there's so much that the Australia Council is doing at the moment and talking through the different things that the Australia Council can do to assist you, especially if you already have funds that are available. Maybe I'll just go through these. The removing requirements to meet audience KPIs, key performance indicators, bringing forward payments if you already have a grant that you've already been approved, to see if you can bring those payments forward, simplifying or delaying some of the reporting requirements. Also, you can vary the purpose of the grant if you need to move it more towards paying rent or paying wages. So you can look after people, or you have to extend the timelines. Basically, talk to your grant officer if there's anything that needs to be changed or shifted in your grant along the way. Just get in there. Don't feel shame to go in there. It's not a failure to go in and say, can I change what I was going to do with this grant or the timeline I was going to do? It is not a failure to have a chat with people and say, look, times have changed. I need to change this project in some way. And that you don't feel that stress. Sometimes we can feel government and funding bodies and things like this big boogeyman. Don't be like that. They're there to help you get through this. So get in there as well. Might hand over to you to the next slide, just talking a little bit about the responses well, we've talked a little bit about each of those, but Leanne, just talking about some of the things that are happening there.
Look, Wesley, I think, just I would love to hear from our sector, just in response to the previous slide, and what some of the things that people are doing in shifting some of their grants. What are some of the ideas that are coming through? Like Wesley said earlier, this is a platform where we can share ideas. This is a new frontier, I think, for many of us, where we're learning new skills, and we're actually reaching new audiences. I know that funding and relaxing the KPIs around audiences, but there is another interesting way in which we can reach audiences, where theatre companies, dance sector is doing a month worth of performances. So, have a look at the chat button down the bottom, and look, if you've got ideas and go, like for me, for example, I'll put the first one up, is I'm doing a project on the APY lands with remote communities. Now, the project that I'm working on, obviously we can't access those senior cultural bosses. So we're going to have to really shift the way in which we're working on this project. It also means that, we want to be able to keep our elders safe. So locking down those remote communities is protecting them in terms of COVID. So one of the things that I've done with one of the grants that has asked for an adjustment to it, extend it until, and we don't know when this isolation is going to be lifted. As we know now, it's another 4 weeks away, but it could continue. So one of the things I think that's really hard to probably say, wearing a practitioner hat, is when will some normality come back? And that's going to be a hard thing, I think, for many people to answer. But if there's anyone out there that has spoken to a grants officer and has some of that feedback, please share it on the chat line, and so the rest of the field can learn some ideas as well.
Well, this is interesting. Ruth Langford has come through saying that you can talk to the legal service, Aboriginal legal service or health service, and they can often provide a letter of ID that Centrelink will accept. So there's some interesting advice. But
right.
Also the different departments of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander partnerships or affairs, depending, they can also help organise a letter or some form of ID that Centrelink will accept. So Gabrielle, there's some interesting suggestions coming through, which is great, isn't it? We're such a wonderful network, and we all know that there are similar issues. So when you get these this advice and suggestions, it can all come through. We might go to as Leanne suggested, if there are people who wanted to talk about what they're doing, whack it in the chat box there, and we can read it out to people if they haven't been reading it. Well, we might then go on to the next slide while we're waiting for that to occur, because the chat box has slowed down a little bit. Just to say a little bit about this, what the Australia Council's opened in terms of this resilience fund. There are no closing dates for this, but we've been told that about up to 900 applications have already come through. So it's pretty much a rolling set of deadlines here, and they're looking at that. So there are 3 areas there. Grants which are committed to the idea of surviving, small grants for individuals or groups or organisations to offset or recoup financial losses due to cancelled activity. So you can put in an application for that. Adapting, grants for individuals, groups or organisations to adapt their practice and explore new operating models, especially online, I imagine, if there are digital things there. And also to create new works and develop creative responses to this time of disruption. There's a link there you can see, which is you get onto the Australia Council website, funding, and you look for the 2020 Resilience Fund that can help you get through all of that as well. Cinsa Mansell's great. She's saying she's working on a project that has changed from community engagement resource, and we're now stretching the program over 6 months and creating an online resources instead of community sessions. We've allowed a little relief of stress because she's changed the timeline for that. Great work, Cinsa. I mean, you're doing a number of projects, I know, in Tasmania and of different styles and different shapes, and I hope that they get those public outcomes you're really looking for. Lily Shearer is saying 100 points for Centrelink, license, passport, Medicare card, bank account key card. Lily, I want your bank account key card number. Just send it through now. I'll grab that from you. No, only gammon. But yes, how to get 100 points can sometimes be a bit difficult as well. Yeah, thanks for laughing my joke there, Maylene. Yes. Peter Lenoy saying, recently sought advice from Andrew in getting an extension for reporting as we have competing priorities with our funding partners and annual auditing. And Andrew was very helpful. Andrew working there for the Australia Council. So people saying the Australia Council is already in there helping shift and change those things. So just a little reminder as we're going through that resilience fund is also there to help people get through these hard times.
Wesley, can I just add to that, Renee, in our back room through the Australia Council, thanks Renee for that, but she's just also written a message to Gabrielle that the Australia Council could potentially assist in getting the access to Centrelink and the ID information. So just noting that as well, that the team is there to support in that area.
Oh, fantastic stuff. I mean, it's great when you feel community coming together and sharing ideas, which gets us to the next slide there. Thanks, Michelle. We have two guest speakers today. The wonderful Dr. Jared Thomas. Jared's also a member of the the First Nations Strategy Panel here at the Australia Council, as well as being a writer, curator for the Aboriginal art and material culture at this South Australian Museum. And Jared, you've just joined the board of, is it History?
Yeah, the History Trust of South Australia.
Well, congratulations to you, Jared. I just read that on, which is a fantastic thing. And then after Jared, we'll then talk to Diat. But Jared, we might hand you over to you for the next 10 minutes to talk a little bit about your perspective and what you're doing.
No worries. Yeah, thank you very much, Wesley, Leanne. Nice to join you, Diat. Yeah, just like to acknowledge that I'm here today on Kaurna country. And I'm honoured to have the opportunity to share reflection on being an artist at this time. I'm going to be unapologetically positive today. I've gone through and to continue to spin in and out of stages of grieving in the last month. And at this time, I choose positivity and optimism, partly as a survival mechanism, partly because I take strength from my ancestors' experiences at this time. And I particularly want to reflect on this. In relations to restrictions that I'm dealing with and we're all dealing with around the country, I'm reflecting on restrictions on family members' movement in the past. I, like many of you, have family members that are living that needed to request police permission to visit family. And this wasn't temporary, but a dominant part of much of their lives. So I really take gratitude at the moment for the freedoms that we have. The ability to talk and have dialogue across the country as we are right now. So I choose positivity, and I'm looking at our social distancing as an act of love, an expression of love, and a protection of each other. In this last year, through my work as a curator, I've come to learn of an object that belonged to one of my ancestors that was taken from his camp following his death from the Spanish flu. It is a reminder of the seriousness of this time, but I think it also provides hope, knowing that my people, Noongar people, also lived through that pandemic and continue to survive. I'd also like to think that as Aboriginal people, we have heightened resilience and strategies to deal with this time. Some of these things aren't new to us. Yeah, I'll move on to the next slide, please. So this is one of the images from a book that Patty Mills and I released in August 2017. And so I write young adult fiction and children's fiction primarily, and I have written plays. I write because I'm not happy with the world the way it is. I want to destroy it, expose its flaws, and rebuild it. In the vision that I have for a better world, particularly for Aboriginal people. Writing has kept me going through the most difficult points in my life. This isn't one of them, not yet. We speak about art as a therapy. as a way of well-being. Now, in particular, is the time for art to be our medicine, to serve as our medicine. This moment has presented challenges and setbacks to us all. So Paddy and I released Game Day in Australia with Alan and Owen in August 2007, and we launched in the US pretty much at the time COVID-19 broke in the US. Paddy had been invited to meet with 30,000 sales reps of our US publisher Kane Miller that would then promote the book throughout the US. This was supposed to happen in the coming months. I was supposed to be in the US promoting the book and visiting Norway, America, Canada, and New Zealand as part of a Churchill fellowship. We wrote the book together because we shared values on things that we wanted to address. We wanted to address racism, bullying and stereotypes, highlighting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander aspirations and the roles our families and communities play in offering support. We wanted to show the dynamism of our people, discuss the role of role models and perseverance. And we especially wanted to provide reading materials for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and other Indigenous children across the world. So the motivation for writing these books would be the same if we were asked to write at this time. And I imagine your motivation to produce art is likely similar to my own. And this motivation, it is my fire, and I assume that it's your fire too. And I think at the moment it's really important to be tapping into that. Those things that give us purpose and drive as a tool to protect our mental health. I'll move on to the next slide, please. So this is a Flatiron building. It's in America, in New York City. And visiting the 7th floor of the Flatiron building was the impetus for the creation of my current book, My Spare Heart, which is what I'm completing. I was hoping to meet with the publisher again in August, so Macmillan in the Flatiron building, in the hope of trying to on-sell the book from my Australian publisher through to the US publisher. So that goal is still an aspiration, but I need to let go of the aspiration. Look at the opportunity that this moment presents. And the opportunity I think, is that I can really refine my craft to write the best book I can possibly produce that increases my chances of having further readership of that particular book. So yeah, as a writer, it depends a lot on isolation. So this is the perfect time to be writing, developing my craft and improving. So I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is the Port Augusta Hall, Town Hall, and this photo was taken in 1887, approximately 40 years following the colonisation of my people's lands. When I first started writing a play called Flash Red Ford about my great-grandfather's experiences, I wished for the play to be performed in this hall. My mum was an usherette at the Old Town Hall, and through her employment, I got to see all of these movies for free. Cinema was absolute magic for me as a child, and the prospect of challenging the racism that exists in my hometown, the prospect of performance in that space, so magical to me, supercharged my creativity. So I feel that coming out of this moment, there's going to be people incredibly, people are just going to want to have that social experience. People are going to want to be re-entering our theatres. People are going to, they'll be just incredibly hungry for art. So we need to have a foothold to spin out of this moment in order to make the most of that opportunity. So that play, Flash Red Ford, was performed in Kenya and Uganda in 1999. So I dreamt of it being performed in Port Augusta. It was performed in Kenya and Uganda. It has never been performed in Port Augusta, yet these dreams led to the most amazing to me visiting the most amazing cities in the world, including spending months in Jamaica with my literary hero Olive Senior, who's now in her 80s. So we've been talking about our next catch-up, our projects, our dreams. Even this morning, we were starting to engage with poets across the world about starting to produce some writing about this time. So we create with anticipation of reaching audiences. This moment provides opportunity to refocus on connecting with Aboriginal people closer to home in different ways. And who knows where this concentration of effort might take me and others. And probably, to tell the truth, I don't think that my engagement with my local community is what it should be. So this time provides that opportunity through forums such as this to be engaging firstly with other Noongar people, South Australian people, other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the country. Next slide, please. So I believe that learning, setting goals to learn new things is essential to our well-being. So there is so much to learn about our people, our neighbours, Aboriginal groups across the country. So at the moment, I'm reading about Aboriginal foods and medicines, the research conducted by the anthropologist Norman Tyndall, in order to understand and critique the way he represented our peoples, in order to change the museology practices of our country. I know that people may be challenged by caring for family and dealing with anxiety, etc. But I encourage people to make time for yourself, to learn those things you've always wanted to learn, and particularly those things that can underpin your work. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much. And I've just realized that one of the positives of speaking on Zoom is I would be absolutely shitting myself if I knew that there was 180 of you watching me speak. So yeah, that's one of the advantages of this this forum.
Jared, I know that too. You had a Churchill fellowship. What happened there? That obviously that's on hold for you now.
Yep. So I think the last time I saw you, so on the Tuesday we settled on a date when I could visit Norway, US, Canada, New Zealand. The following morning, the Churchill called me to say, sorry, we've had to suspend your travel. And I thought, this is just a flu. What's the problem? And then the next day next morning I was in the meeting with you guys, with the Australia Council. And of course, we started to talk about how we could support artists through this time and the things that we needed to close down, etc. So yeah, they're going to provide another 12 months beyond this year to undertake the Churchill. I'm starting to think about still contacting the hosts, reading the key texts of those institutions, having Zoom meetings with the people, the communities, the scholars that I would have met with. The research is still incredibly important to me, so I'll just find a way to make it happen.
We know many people writing in the chat room here, Jared, about your positivity, your sense of looking forward to healing, about making a change, and also reflecting on this idea that in our history we've always had resilience. We've found ways of surviving. You just want to talk a little bit more about the story of your ancestor who survived, they perished during the Spanish flu. And yesterday you told a story about a particular object and the relationship to that object and the Spanish flu then.
Yeah, well, I guess, look, I have a growing familiarity with objects from my Noongar and Ngadri peoples. And I came across an object that belonged to a man who's possibly my great-great-great-grandfather. I'm not so certain. He's definitely a relative. And the provenance information with that object talks about the object being taken from his camp following his death from the Spanish flu. And so I've been kind of holding that object during the year. I actually engaged with that object as a bit of a gift to myself after kind of achieving something that I wanted to achieve. So it's very important to me. And I think just thinking about that moment, the impact of disease on our people as part of early colonialism, but then looking at our survival as well. And of course, like all of us, our families were prevented from seeing each other. My great-grandmother had to come under the cover of night into Port Augusta to visit her children. There were brothers, my great-grandfather and his brothers, that were split into different missions, and they would join working teams to work on particular farms so that they could engage with each other. So I guess, there were strategies that our people adopted.
Fantastic. There's a few things, and then there's a question here from Bonaventura to talk a little bit, but just to say, Ruth Langford was just saying that she was talking to Michelle from the Australia Council about a variation of grant and how easy it was to just put in an email, having had a conversation just to do that. That's really great. Nicole Chaffee is also talking about working at home and delivering materials so that people can create and work on that way. And Ali Murphy Oates was talking about Muggleland Live, or Muggle Live, to check out their website because there is work going from there. So just there's a question here from Bonaventura. Please excuse me if I haven't got the name properly. It's a PhD researcher. They are a PhD researcher at the University of New South Wales, and interested to hear whether and how material culture informs Jared's amazing work. I guess we're talking about objects there, but this idea of material culture being a driving force. You're such a learned scholar in this way, Jared.
I'm new to it. And yeah, I'm on a journey, I've only just started working as a curator, and I guess that involves a lot of research and a lot of reading, a lot of talking to people, and that's why I guess I'm trying to just push myself as much as possible at this time. But yeah, material culture I think, and that's one of the things that I want to do as a curator, is be able to ensure that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have access to their collections. The South Australian Museum holds the biggest collection of Aboriginal cultural material on the planet, over 30,000 objects. Less than 95% of these are displayed to the public. But yeah, the inspiration that we take from engaging with our family members' work. I've seen incredible things happen where, for instance, there were some sisters three sisters came into the museum. They picked up an object and they realized that it was made by their grandmother. And they picked up another object, it was made by their grandmother as well. They had no idea that their grandmother was a weaver. It was just like the most, astounding experience.
Well, people writing in here too, this notion that these objects have spirit and engagement in them, and we often are attracted to the things that we can see as familiar in terms of spirit. And Joanne Dreisen's also saying it's important to connect with our own stories with objects within museums because of giving that power along the way as well, that our stories that are held. It's interesting at the moment, many people are saying that in these historic moments that we should in fact be writing poetry, writing journals, creating work, because that's the way that we will be able to tell the story in the future. What's your position there, Jared, about what are the kind of objects that we could be making now that our great-great-grandchildren will look back to and want to connect with? Do you have any thoughts on that way?
Well, I think it's that, we're faced with one of the biggest threats, which is climate change, and we're not even at the point of starting to see how that manifests. So, we need to equip our children and our communities with positivity, and also our learning. So I think, yes, to be writing, producing work about our resilience during this period is what is going to help our communities in future get through other hardship.
And
I mean, like I said, like, I mean, my great grandmother, she's probably one of my biggest inspirations. When I get hit with challenges, I just need to think about her experiences, which are horrific, and that gives me buoyancy to move through.
Well, one last question before we go on to Diat. Paul Rees writes here, he says that, Jared, it's great that you acknowledge that the museum world has a long process in terms of time, but in these strange days we're in, there is a sense of urgency and need in arts and culture, and that there are many, many ideas that are around. What are your thoughts on these potential clashes between those holding these objects and our access to them, and the ideas that might need to be developed?
I think there's a growing urgency, especially within my museum, to be sharing objects and creating access with our communities. And so in this moment, we'll be looking at how to create more virtual access and engaging with communities. We don't want to stop that work. Yeah, so I mean, there is a change, and Terry Janke has been remarkable in supporting that change.
Well, I know that a lot of the conversations around NIACA are about this as well. This notion of, you know, what a cultural authority could look like that is about navigating these relationships between collections, the cultural knowledge holders, as well as these museums that hold objects, and what the interaction is there.
We just need to keep up the pressure. Like, obviously I'm inside of the building, but we need that pressure to be maintained from the community. It is our right to be engaging with our cultural material.
Well, look, Diat's been waiting in the wings there, in the wings up on the islands. Are you in the Torres Strait there, Diat? Are you hanging up there?
Yes, I am here.
Oh, wonderful. Well, can I just say thank you to Jared, and we'll come back to you in a second, but just to welcome to the floor the wonderful Diat Alferink. I'm going to say that you're a performer, a writer, a cultural worker, a dancer, an angler. You know, you're out there fishing last time I heard, doing a whole range of things. But maybe you'd like to introduce yourself and set us off on the next 10 minutes to talk a little bit about your practice and what you've been doing during this time.
Sure. Midikir, Kapakut, hello, and good afternoon. Family, friends, fellow First Nations countrymen and women. I'm a proud Ipika woman from the Wakayth clan of Bardo Island, and also from Mabiok on the inner Western Torres Straits. My language group is Kalalagauya, and every day I try to immerse myself in relearning my language and culture for my children and their future. Because most of you probably know that I grew up in a small outback town in South Australia, just up the road from Jared's milk there, in Adjumana country. So I'm a long way from my grown-up home, but I've returned back to my cultural home. Esther, Wesley and Leanne, for inviting me here today. I'm honoured to share the platform with Dr. Jared Thomas, who I've known for many years, back in my arts worker days in Adelaide. Yeah, a lot of things are happening. So the question, of course, is posed to me, how is Torres Strait artists and community and my own practice and business being affected by COVID-19? And I want to start by saying, I think it's timely, as awful as it is, but it's like we've been shaken up. Our world of crisis has been forced to be more innovative, even more as First Nations people. And the thought that we're dealing with, that we already were resilient and fighting the good fight, that really, I think it's all been a rehearsal, and our time is actually now. Because I really think we are, as we all know, at much more risk. But of course, with risk comes opportunity, you know, and I see this time as an opportunity, as Jared was mentioning, and to truly continue to innovate and redefine and create and sort the shit from the clay, really. Change slide. Can I go to the next one? Thank you. I'm living in a remote part of Australia. That's my front doorstep. So I've had to adapt to working at home, as you can see there. And I live on Thursday Island. So really at the moment, I feel like we're in a bit of a protected bubble. We have the daily updates of the coronavirus on TV, and life continues with a few altered behaviours and procedures to ensure our safety and our well-being. We're sanitising our hands before we go into the childcare. We're sanitising our hands outside the shop. Restricting our public access to our workplace here at SIMA, at the radio station. We're not visiting our elders or the sick, but nobody's wearing masks yet. The panic buying has just hit us in the last 2 weeks. Toilet paper, along with rice, pasta, tin food, is all being snapped up as soon as the barge from Cairns is loaded off. Now, surprisingly, there's copious amounts of tin hamper, bully beef, camp pie, whatever your respective states call it. And I start to think, why is that, you know? Well, because the local store manager stocked up on tin hamper, big time. He said he got pallets and pallets of it out the back, because Mippla Island people buy tin hamper. I think that tin hamper might be our safety net. So if there's no tin hamper in the shelves, then we might start getting a bit flustered. Now, speaking of tin hamper and chronic disease and diet, I was yarning to my stepson the other day, and I said, "You said we want him tin hamper up." He said, "Launga." He said, "No." I said, "It's bullock heart meat." Did everyone know that?
No.
Yeah, it's beef heart. It's, you know, cow heart meat.
Ew.
And he didn't believe me, and so he read the tin. So there you go. When you've got more time on your hands, you can read the nutritional value, find out what you're actually eating. So anyway, back to buying toilet paper and the main store at Thursday Island in the Torres Strait. I wondered why. Why is there no toilet paper? And I think it's because all the white people, who are the contract workers, with the means, are buying the toilet paper every day. Anyway, this is just an unfounded opinion, okay? So there you go. Torres Strait and Cape have no cases of COVID-19, and our families are really happy for that. But we are bracing ourselves, and if and when it hits. And we're kind of thinking, what will that really look like? And what will that feel like? What will it be like? My 5-year-old daughter said to me the other day, "Mum, did 6 people die of coronavirus?" You know, so it's that kind of, yeah, it's there, it's coming. She's been told to wash her hands for 20 seconds, to cough in her arm. She corrected me the other week when I had some kind of barking bronchitis. Needless to say, the SIMA president sent me off to quarantine, freaking out because I was coughing in the shops. So, as I said before, no one's walking around with masks, but our elders aren't on the streets. Everything's quiet. It's like the calm before the storm. In terms of restrictions, I just want to talk a little bit about that. The level of restrictions now that are in place in the Torres Strait is like the old permit system. You have to wait to get approved. You might have heard on the news the other night that some of our families are stuck down in Cairns who can't return home. Yeah. It sounds and feels like, you know, how it was before. However, we understand why. The Torres Strait Local Disaster Management Group are quarantining and have quarantined returning secondary school students, and they've been cleared now after 14 days. And since last Monday, there's been also a 4-week ban on our inter-island travel. So it means nobody from the outer islands can come in and we can't go out. And that's kind of quite a lot of pressure for families, especially around business and stuff like that. A lot of what's happening also is that maybe traditional hunting is happening more because meat prices are soaring, and that's something that we don't know is affecting our environment and our, you know, how we're caring for our land and sea. Another thing I just wanted to mention, under the Torres Strait Treaty, all PNG nationals are now stopped from daily trading across the border with some of our island communities because of COVID-19, and this obviously is to restrict infection, but also for us to not vice versa infect over the border. So anyway, the other thing I wanted to touch on was, you know, the other week we wake up to midnight the decision of the national, you know, restrictions on funerals. And that day we had to wake up and at the daunting task of burying one of our loved ones, and how we honour and pay respect to our family member. With only 10 immediate family in the church, everyone was social distancing, and it was quite amazing. I was quite, this, you know, like we were taking it on, this, you know, a gathering of 100 people outside the church. The singers came in and out. The priest wasn't touching or shaking hands. But until I think the grief took over emotionally, we felt that cultural obligation to still hug and shake hands and give our condolences to our family. So that was a scary point for me, and I extracted myself from the situation, and I was less feeling disrespectful for not hugging and kissing my family members and letting, you know, that, and also them wanting to shake my hand. And I didn't even go to the wake that night. So I was left feeling challenged about my respect for cultural protocols and the unfinished feeling of grief. And it was a very bizarre feeling and experience, to be honest. Yeah, so that's that. But being cautious, risk averse, and considerate is all part of how we're trying to do things up here. It's like we know we have to practice this. And as we've said before, we're survivors, we will adapt, we'll change to the situation. Our culture is strong, our customs will just need to be modified for the interim, and our behaviours towards our families and communities will need to be looked at to find alternative ways for us to do things. I think ultimately we're not into panicking, but we must stay vigilant and be calm and ride the storm. Change slide, please. So things that have challenged myself and community here over the last little while, things around the arts sector. The Cultural Centre, Gubtatui, has closed, obviously. They're doing phone sales for arts materials to visual artists in the outer islands and here. Our public programs at the Cultural Centre is obviously postponed. Our annual Arts Award that happens every year, that's also been cancelled till further notice. And this is a really big highlight that happens in our community, so it's such a big adjustment. There's also the question of how homeland Torres Strait artists are involved in things like CIAF and the Darwin Arts Fair, and whether they can be still part of it in an online capacity. And also, obviously, our art centres in the communities of Baru, Moa and Arab, I think are working from home with their artists. Obviously, the local employment services, they've gone on 4 months leave, so there's not a lot of activity going on there. And for CIMA here, for guys that don't know about CIMA, in the last few years, we've been trying to support our Torres Strait musicians to record and perform in our studio here. And a lot of things were planned for the next, obviously, year. And that's on the back of the festival that we hosted last year in September, the Remote Indigenous Media Festival, which is obviously our core business to run a media organisation, but we also, can't help myself, we started a Torres Strait Performing Arts Festival, and that was a great success with our community, and we got excited about everything performing arts. So you'll be glad to hear that. But of course, it's now come to a bit of a, oh, what are we going to do now about our big ideas? So one of the first things we were trying to do was to remount a concert that we did during that festival time in Cairns later in the year, possibly now. And that was the history of Torres Strait through song. So that, I think that was about 200 artists, but we're trying to scale it back now. And hopefully that'll be how we rehearse that for something in the future. It will still be something we have to look at, a challenge. Our local Torres Strait performing artists obviously are not coming into the studio to record. They're not performing live in the studio, but we're finding other ways to do that. We also have a Torres Strait Performing Arts collective group that obviously not meeting in the building, but we're going to try and do other things like obviously online. We had some funding for Reconciliation Week and we planned a whole heap of things, but we've decided to adjust our program to solo and duo performances in the front window of the organisation. So we're planning that one. And we might even have the person announcing live across in the other window. So we'll see how that goes. Emerging artists, I suppose a lot of emerging artists obviously come up and we've got a young group up at the moment, 5-member Torres Strait Youth Performing Arts performing group called Brothers Production. So they were just getting into the community performing live and they're ready to start recording and touring. So that's all been a bit of a halt for them and we're just going to look at how we can support them. Established artists like the Island Reggae band Black Paradise, who've recorded at Simon Studios. They've released their music online, but again, they've bought their flash deadly equipment and got nowhere to perform. But we'll see how we can support them as well to do more solo or online performances. Comedy. See, I was excited about comedy. It was first time we're going to have Torres Strait final of Deadly Funny. And yeah, it's all just been squashed. So we were talking to Deadly Funny about having a Torres Strait final in the next few months. And so we're hopefully going to start asking community to just do some skits and send it into Sama, and we'll work on creating confidence about doing comedy, whatever that is. And then we'll be ready when we can get onto the stage. So yeah, that's that one. Another thing just about, so that's SIMA, the radio station and performing arts. The cultural event, the Zenith Cares, the cultural festival happens every 2 years. That's in September. That might look to be postponed as well. Yeah, so that's that bit. What it means for the future of First Nations art practice and moving forward. Well, for me, as I mentioned, we've got to adapt, and these initiatives for the future. We here at SIMA have to do more radio documentaries, get more into film, you know, work with our elders on the phone, start doing more language hosting, learning, working with a school, working with a language centre. These are all things we were going to do, but it's almost like it's pushed us now to do it more than it would have been. We're planning some, obviously, the downtime to support our artists with grant writing and auspicing projects. So as community organisations, obviously, that's what we do. A bit of animation. I'll go to the next slide. There you go. I'll show you that one. Click. During the Media Festival, we started an animation project with our local Karareg community here on TI. And yeah, that's something we could possibly still do. Virtual workshop with our animator, facilitator, and also work with our elders around story. So we're still keen to look at different mediums to engage our young people and support our elders in telling their myths and legends. Oh, Lord.
No, you're too busy there. You even want to talk to you now. Sorry. So the plan for the future is to continue to work with communities, and obviously the funding around the local Torres Strait region for arts have been looked at through the Torres Strait Regional Authority, and hopefully that'll support our artists funding rounds similarly to other bodies, and we look forward to being able to support as an NGO for that. Slide number 5. There we go. What's the next one? Just a few people.
Okay, there we go. So tips for the future. For me, it's about, again, practicing social distancing, praying, meditating, growing vegetables, going fishing, weaving. Really bad at weaving, need to weave more. Don't go to bed angry, eat healthy, ring a friend or family if you don't talk to them enough. Love everybody, stay safe and create. That's it for me.
That's deadly, so deadly, Diat. I mean, some of the things that really stuck out to me is this idea of self-sufficiency. Like actually go, okay, if you can't rely on others, you can't go connecting with others, you have to look after yourself. This notion of keep all those skills of fishing and growing food. I love the idea of grant writing as well. Do grant writing workshops at this time to help when the recovery occurs, that you can jump in and get in there. I'd like to hear, like, also talking about going online and doing some of that work that you've been putting off or didn't have the time for, actually doing it now around language and recording stories. And this idea of this kind of internal community thinking. Some of the stuff that's come through the chat room is talking about what do we do with this tension around what COVID-19 is doing in terms of social distancing and our ceremonial and cultural responsibilities. Should we make a promise that, you know, after this time that we will connect or we will have these grieving processes? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are saying sorry to their family members they've been wild for a long time. I was like, oh, look out. It happened in my family the other day. I was like, oh, it's just the end of the world. You want to say sorry. That's good, you know. No, I think it is about people having a look at themselves and thinking about how we go into the future with true unity. I think we talk about it enough, but what does it actually mean for us culturally, creatively, and, you know, into the future in a way that we can truly make, you know, that lasting thing that we're doing, but it's almost like we're pushed into it by this crisis, you know.
And how are you communicating in your community about some of the things that you're doing? Obviously, working in a radio program, you're using the radio a lot. How are the messages getting across in your community?
Well, I think at the moment it's all about stay safe, do the right thing. I think it's all about health messaging.
But how are you getting that message across? Is it just talking to people in the supermarket kind of feel, or is it putting up signs everywhere? How's it getting around?
Well, people are listening to the radio more, which is good, because we thought, oh, it's a dying thing. Only old people are listening and a few, you know, fans, and the whole thing about community radio. So I think what's happened is people are listening more and they want to know more and they want to be able to have a conversation. So we're starting more talk back, and we're trying to, even just people playing good music that they want to request, like good sound, like feeling good. Even that's kind of important. A lot of our pastors have come on and wanting to do a religious program on a Sunday to part of that spiritual kind of support. So yeah, I think it's almost it's invigorated us as an organisation, and I think that's an exciting thing, even if it's a scary time.
In many ways, both you and Jared are talking about this positivity, the sense of looking forward, the idea of looking back into our history. What have we done? How have we survived the past? How have we looked at whatever diseases have come our way? And how do we kind of look forward with that in mind? It seems to be a bit of a through line there. Diat, you talked a little bit about comedy. What do you see as, like, do you believe that comedy and laughing is the kind of medicine we need as well? And how are you doing that every day?
Well, I think I've got to get those skits on. I think community are doing it through this TikTok business. You know, I think everyone's getting into TikTok, these island people around here.
What's TikTok, Diat?
Oh, they're TikToking, all kind of dancing. But the other day, so of course all of it comes with, oh, you shouldn't do that, that's a bit wrong, you know. Yeah, someone was TikToking hunting. So it was like, oh, don't do that. And then another one, I think it's mob feeds. You know, everyone's posting what they're cooking at home. You know, they're all at home cooking. And everyone's seeing all this kaiko from everywhere. And it's like, oh, you're eating dugong every day. you know, like, it's kind of like, you know, ooh, just put those photos away. So it's about, okay, how do we self kind of, you know, keeping it our stuff to ourselves, but also participating in feeling connected around being proud about our food and proud about all the things that are cultural.
Yeah, watch out, Leanne. You're getting a bit of stick there, saying, "What? You don't know what TikTok is? Who are you?
All right, you mom.
You old woman, you."
Oh, look, you know.
Well, just for anyone who doesn't know, TikTok is this sharing platform, mostly for video. Lots of people doing lip syncing and doing, you know, cutting together videos and sharing them online. Well, be careful though. It's actually a Chinese platform as well. So there's some conversation around making sure all your privacy settings are looking after that. So that it's out there. People saying here, mob are killing it at TikTok. Everyone knows how to make them laugh up there. But that whole idea of sharing seems to be, again, a very key thing. How do we share knowledge? How do we look after that? Yeah, here we go. People saying NITV did a story on mob using TikTok yesterday. So check it out on NITV.
Oh, okay.
Good report there. And Zooming with elders, people saying as well, you know, that Zooming with elders, no good. I had to teach old friend there how to use FaceTime. And no good. I keep seeing the inner of her ear all the time. You know, you ring her and she goes straight to her ear. And I go, oh, you gotta look at the phone. What? Like this? So its own comedy right there as it goes through. Yeah, this sense too of the sorry business is one of those things that we're very, very concerned about, and we really hope that this disease doesn't get into communities that are incredibly vulnerable, be that in urban scenarios or in cities, as well as in rural and remote communities. What is your community doing to make sure that the disease doesn't get there? Because touch wood, it hasn't got there yet. And how is your community keeping the disease at bay? Yes, washing hands things, but how are you stopping people from bringing it in?
Or just stopping everybody coming in. I mean, I think that's part of the trauma of our mob that are stuck, is that they, you know, need to go through quarantine and need to be away from extended family in somewhere like Cairns to be ticked off to be able to come back. But there's only one flight a week. And a lot of those people coming in are essential service people. And a lot of people are saying, did they go into quarantine? You know, like, it's that thing about, you know, they are essential workers, but, you know, God forbid it be someone from that leak there that would bring it in, you know, like, because everybody else is here, staying here, can't move, it's locked down, you know, for that very reason that we are you know, really concerned. But we have briefings every week from our local disaster management group, and people listening in, we're broadcasting it today. School, obviously, people are not knowing what school's doing, and that's kind of hard for communities who are disadvantaged and don't have the technologies. And how do they, you know, so it's even talking about how do we as a media association help with even, you know, language and culture, you know, as a program for.
It sounds like new technologies have been absolutely important in all of this stuff. We just joking then about TikTok and FaceTime and things like that, but it seems to be that we're using these technologies to our advantage, and we're doing good Captain Cook on it. We claim it, we make it our own, and we just do it the way we want to do it, just like Captain Cook did. But we do it our way, which is fantastic. Jared, have you heard of stories in especially South Australia, or ways that the virus has been kept out of our communities?
No, I don't. There's nothing kind of particular in relation to Aboriginal communities. There has been a lot of debate and a lot of activism from people in the APY lands around the vulnerability of elders and the concern for people in those communities. Just giving the lack of medical resources. Like, I mean, it exposes the lack of medical resources in remote parts of our country. So yeah, I think the APY lands, people from the art centres have been particularly vocal in talking about the levels of care required for people.
But in saying that too, Jared, and I'm very much aware of the media surrounding that is that one of the things that APY Lands did was they probably stopped people visiting and squashed permits 3 months ago now. So
Yeah.
they, you know, Nacho and in particular all of those, they enacted their medical plans. They knew that what they were doing, and there's been weekly state government meetings around that. One of the things that also that has been happening is that we've got rough sleepers in the South Parklands around our city. We've got a lot of remote women, not only from the APY lands, but also as far as places like, you know, Walpuri people from Yuendamu, from around Alice Springs. So the South Parklands in Adelaide is predominantly where women go with young children. So what the state government's done, and with my stepsister leading it, is through an NGO have taken these women and children up to the Adelaide Hills into a scout type facility where they can be safe, not only safe from corona and having that social isolation, but it's also about issues around domestic violence, you know, getting children support. So there's all of that sort of happening as well. How long they'll be up there for is, I don't know at the moment. But just a call out, we're really wanting some programs run for those children up in the Adelaide Hills and for women. So down this way, I'm trying to organise materials to get to those women so they can practice their weaving and painting. But also importantly, you know, children, they need resources to keep their children educated and interested as well. So if anyone out there's got any ideas about you know, where there might be some programs that could assist an NGO with those rough sleepers, that would be great. Please message me.
I'm just aware of the time, and we're just looking at a couple of things coming through. Brooke Blurton has been doing 30 days of deadliness on her Instagram Live, spotlighting mob and yarning about how each person is getting through isolation in a healthy way. That's really great. Also hearing that in the Cape communities are closed to visitors and all entry is being monitored and enforcing a 2-week self-isolation, as Diat was saying too. This idea too of, Gabrielle's talking about participating with children online in cultural games, like how we could do that, or I'd love to participate more in that. If there are people working, especially for younger people, in that way. Let's move on because we'll run out of time very quickly.
Sure.
We'll just move on to the next slide, which is talking about our actually, even the next slide.
Oh, sorry, keep going.
Handing over to you, Leanne.
So I guess, you know, really what we're doing is checking in with people, how are people feeling, you know, what's happening at the moment. I know when we first started the webinar, one of the things that I'm struggling with at the moment is sleep. I'm feeling very digitally fatigued and not used to, I guess, you know, spending, well, it's a different way, I guess, used to spending time on a computer, but it's how we're using the computer and getting the brain and pathways to rethink about the way we handle meetings and how we absorb information. So I know that's something that I'm struggling with. I don't know about other people, but one of the things that I'm trying to do is probably get to bed a bit earlier, make sure, be careful what you're eating. I know that, you know, we can certainly graze away on the wrong foods, and that doesn't help with sleep either. And of course exercise. So that's my mindfulness at the moment, and actually meditation. I'm finding that I'm trying to be more mindful around just focusing down on one thing and doing some breathing exercises as well, because I'm finding that my brain's digitalizing and glitching out.
Many people saying this as well, not being able to sleep, or waiting till the sun comes up, or spreading themselves so thin and needing to scale back. Maylene's talking about this, the idea of scaling back to look after your spirit and your family. I know I'm with you. I just need the sun. I just need some sunlight. I feel like I need to get on someone suggested I get on some vitamin D and E, get on the vitamins. I think you said this, Leanne, get on those vitamins because you're not getting much sun as you used to.
Absolutely. Look, I went and got my bloods checked. You know, if one of the things that I've been doing is now's the time to go to a doctor, because you can just get in and out. I mean, I'm finding that in Adelaide. One of the things that they did find with me is a deficiency in vitamin D. Yes, get out, but getting out in the sun, yes, but certainly get onto the vitamin D tablets as well. So I've started that today.
Lots of people saying that. And also the idea of setting up your space to work. So, you know, you're literally, was it 5 feet away from the lounge? But you need to kind of say, what's the shape of the space that you're working in that's safe for you and makes sense, so you're not constantly kind of there close to the computer and ready to go all the time. Many people talking about being exhausted. Oh, Jared there, you talking about being exhausted there. Too much late night reading. And that, I don't know about people out there, but constantly scenario planning. Every time there's a new piece of information, I then go, what about? And so it's hard to kind of do that. People talking about exercise, plenty of free sessions on YouTube. Get on a fitness blender is what Layla's saying. Get in there and have a little look at that. And think ahead about survival. If we're here for at least another 6 weeks, say 4 to 6 weeks, what are we going to do in terms of getting schedules? Go to work. You know, the idea of, you know, don't get into your day jammies and just go off from work. Get yourself into work mode. Go off to work. Ben Gratz is saying he's currently off social media and he's meditating. You off social media, Ben Gratz? Now that's a miracle in itself. I don't know how that's possible, but for your own sake and your own sake, that's great. It's Denise is talking about how wonderful it is to hear the positivity and optimism. But yes, Nicole wants to wear day jammies for life. Yes, I'm into that too sometimes. But yes, I do have pants on. I'm just saying that now. There are pants on.
I've got slippers on.
What we might do is move to the next slide then. Just looking about one of the things that's come up, and Lydia Miller from the Australia Council raised this, that many people who are writers or visual artists or musicians who are used to working in a solo practice sometimes are finding it easier to write applications or look at what they do as an individual, and that there are many people like dancers and say actors or in the performing arts in that area that are finding it difficult because this atomizing of society, this individualizing, means that if you have a more collective process, it's harder to make work. And have a little think about that. If anyone has some suggestions about if you work in a collective way, how can you work together in this particular time, or even apply to this resilience funding, because that's for individuals and groups to apply for. I know there are some people who have been doing play readings online, getting the online kind of structures to work and to do that. But think about how we can do these things together. How can we work together to do that? If you've got suggestions, we've only got about another 5 minutes or so, but if you've got suggestions about how we can work collectively some more, if you've got specific questions you'd like to ask, make sure you get there, put it up there, because we will look at all of these notes that have come through the chat room and the questions to have a little look at that. What kind of alliances and things that can come from this thing. And it's interesting, just the idea through what Jared was saying, many of you will have been involved in the NIACA, the National Indigenous Arts and Cultural Authority, and some of the conversations that have been happening over the last, well, let's say the last 2 years, if not the last 2 decades. And that sense of how we look after ourselves, our cultural materials, and give ourselves this cultural voice, this kind of community alliance in many ways that Maylene's saying, this NIACA could in fact be part of that as we work collectively and think about the future. We might move on to just resources. I know we'll be running out of time soon. Some of the links there, Leanne, and some of the places people can go.
That's right. So we've got the Australia Council website there. We've also we've got our First Nations Roundtables, but also the Creative Connections is very good. I was watching one of our Australia Council staff members, Celia, host one last week. That was fantastic. Also the Resilience Fund. There's information around COVID, and also that there is a couple of Facebook groups set up. There's Arts and Creative Industries, Digital Support, and Australian Arts Amid COVID. So you can go to those for further support and directions. Next slide. And of course, we've got, links to Beyond Blue. I know I just picked up in the webinar chat that, Jared, I think you mentioned, and other people, mental health is a big area that we need to be looking at. So, if you feel that through this isolation you need further support, please go to Beyond Blue or reach out to somebody. Also that there's resources in terms of Indigenous languages as well around COVID and translations to help support Indigenous communities, particularly in remote areas. Okay.
Next slide. The Copyright Agency, they're also having a series of grants and open to people to get in there, especially in this first quarter. There's a number, $1.8 million of grants under this cultural fund. So have a little look at that and see what you can tap into. These wonderful things around the Virtual Writers Festival, Emergency Actions Fund, there's funds there to get into. So have a little look at that so that you can tap into some of these support structures that are around. Sometimes they're, $2,500 is a great small support, but maybe there's also other kind of bigger things that you can do if you get more collective things. I've just got some stuff coming through here, Leanne. The First People's Disability Network website is also a great resource for people with disability, or I guess also workers in that environment. Big thing came through the chat. I'll have a little read of that in a second. But also this idea of people working in multiple areas, especially in the geographic area. Connect up with people who are in your area as we're going through. The next slide there just tells you a little bit about the links that you can get into to check out about the Copyright Agency. All of this will be on the website at the Australia Council to have a little look at as we're going forward. So you can get to see that. The next slide, thanks. And Screen Australia there, they'll have their Indigenous Development Fund, and last webinar talked a little bit about that in terms of what they're doing in terms of supercharging this area of funding, especially during this COVID-19. Just next slide will give us a bit more detail about some of the funding amounts and where to go in terms of that website for Screen Australia to supercharge some of this kind of storytelling and conversations that are happening. Next slide. All of this information will be on the website, so if it's going a little fast, don't worry, it'll come back to you. The Indigenous TV Drama and Development Initiative there, again, for one-off projects or for a series to do some development of work there at Screen Australia. And the next slide will tell us a little bit about Indigenous documentary development. Again, all on the Screen Australia website that you can have a look at. Talking very quickly there, but there's, next slide will just tell us a little bit about the short film initiative. If we go to the next slide, has more detail just about where to go in terms of Screen Australia's partnerships with other bodies there to submit an 8-minute scripted story idea for money up to $5,000 if you're working in an area that you think could benefit from a film or screen development funds, up to $5,000 there to do that. We're coming to the end of this. The next slide, thanks. Sorry, just to race through all of that information. All of that will be on the website that you can have a little look at as we go through. Oh, there's one more slide there, Michelle. You've just dropped it out for us. It's just talking about the next roundtable, which is next Friday, the 24th. And we'll have Jibla, who is a hip hop artist and is also working at Carclu at the moment in industry development and music in First Nations areas there. Janina Harding, who's the artistic director of the Cairns Indigenous Art Fair. She'll be talking next week. And also Nadi Simpson, who's a multidisciplinary artist, but noted mostly for her music and writing, who's a fantastic artist, and to have them on board. So join us again at 2 o'clock next week on Friday, the 24th of April, to get all that together. Can we say a big thank you to Jared and Diat? Leanne, what an honor to spend some time with you, and to always, your insight and wisdom is so gorgeous. So thank you so much too, to spend this hour and a half. And all those people out there, it's just amazing. So to close us off, Leanne, why don't you give us the final word?
Well, I just think be kind, be safe, reach out. If you need to talk, there's plenty of platforms. I know people are, you know, look on the Australia Council website as well if you need support around your practice. Okay, there's lots of ideas coming through. Discuss it with the team at the Australia Council. They're ready to take those calls. Wesley, wonderful to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, look after the mob. All right, you're too deadly. See you later. Bye-bye.